Hello everyone, it is Wednesday. That means it's time for another Cracker Pack. We're opening this pack of Rivals of Ixalan, and we're going to talk about what we would first pick, and I'll talk about how I feel about every card in this pack at this point in the limited format. So our first common is Sanguine Glorifier. I like both of the common vampire payoffs pretty reasonably, but I kind of want to be in the vampire deck earlier, or then, in a vampire deck before taking a card like Sanguine Glorifier. It's not going to be good if you're not in a vampire deck. If you are, I think it's actually proven to be quite good. So, I wouldn't first pick it, but it is a card I play in most vampire decks. Next, we have Sea Legs. This card's solid. It's good in any deck, honestly. You kind of want to side it out against people who are super heavy in pirates, I guess. But other than that, it's a pretty good card. I wouldn't first pick it, but it has proven to be a pretty good little aura. Sun-Collared Raptors is next. It's kind of a mediocre playable that you'll play sometimes in your aggressive decks, because in the late game it's really difficult to just like take the damage from. But in the early game it's pretty bad. In the early game it can just be blocked by a 2/2 and you have to pump a bunch of mana into it just so you can trade, and that's ugly. It's basically a 2-drop that's good in the late game and bad in the early game, which is kind of a weird thing and not something you necessarily want to first pick. You definitely don't want to first pick it. You can get them late. Vampire Revenant, kind of in the same boat. It's just a playable card that you'll play if your deck is heavy in vampires, but otherwise you probably won't. The 1 toughness is a real liability. It dies to a lot of things in this format. But it is vampire, so it has a useful creature type. Next, we have Knight of the Stampede, and right now I think this is our first pick. Chances are it won't stay that way, but it's proven to be pretty good. It has good stats. It blocks well, and it makes your dinosaurs cost 2 less, which is significant. It's not uncommon to play Knight of the Stampede on turn 4 and then play 2 dinosaurs on turn 5 that would cost normally 7 mana. So that is a pretty good thing to do. So right now, Knight of the Stampede is our first pick. Recover, solid card. You'll play one of in a lot of black decks, especially if you have good creatures with Enter the Battlefield abilities. Other than that, though, or Death Touch, I guess. But you don't want to take it early, and you don't usually want more than one. This is because they're not very good in your opening hand. They're good to draw late, and you don't really want to run more than one because of that. Next, we have Secrets of the Golden City. This card has overperformed. I think this format has proven to be slow enough that a 3-mana draw 2 is okay, and a 3-mana draw 3 is excellent. If you cast it in the late game, it's very good. If you cast it in the early game, it's fine. But I still wouldn't first pick it. I'd take Knight of the Stampede over it. Next, we have Oraska Relic. It's an okay little mana rock. The only time I've played it is when I have some crazy 8 mana or 9 mana dinosaur, like if you get the mythic 3-color one or Zatalpa or whatever, then you sort of turn into a crazy ramp deck. And this is pretty nice because not only does it ramp you in the late game, it can help you draw a card and gain you some life, which can help you stay alive long enough to cast some of your crazy things. But you don't want to first pick it. You can pick them up pretty late. Grasping Scoundrel, this guy's fine. It's turned out that he, the fact that when he attacks, he can trade with a lot of creatures in the format is nice, along with the useful creature type. Still a Knight of the Stampede over it. Next, we have Overgrown Armasaur. He has not impressed me a ton. A 5-mana 4/4 isn't great stats. He does make saplings if you can get him damaged, which is fine, but he's sort of like a 5-drop dinosaur you'll play if you don't have some of the good ones. He's sort of a medium playable that you don't really want to take early. So we're still on Knight of the Stampede. Next, we have Enter the Unknown. This card is kind of a dud. I was sort of hopeful it would be better than it is, but the fact that you have to have a creature for you to explore is kind of an issue. It means it's basically not a 1-mana spell. Playing an additional land is nice, but it's not as powerful as it sounds in most scenarios because, if you do draw the card off of this and then you get to play the additional land, and that's what it always does, like explore, it's pretty good. That would be pretty good, but that's just not what's always going to happen. And because of that, it's almost unplayable, I think, in Limited. I've never played it. And it's just not very good. Next, we have Stormfleet Sprinter. This is a pretty good gold card. I don't think it's quite good enough for me to want to first pick, although in this pack so far, I probably would over Knight of the Stampede. This pack isn't very strong. Being unblockable is great. It sets up raid. It's a pirate. I'm sure you've all died to somebody using the double strike trick on this thing, or killed someone with it. That happens pretty regularly. So right now, I guess I would take Stormfleet Sprinter, since our other option is Knight of the Stampede, who is fine, but not so powerful that I think taking a monocolored card is better than taking the stronger gold card. Next is Shake the Foundations. This has proven to be pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of X1s in this format that just die to it, and it's a cantrip, and it triggers Enrage. I would still take Stormfleet Sprinter first, but I might take Shake the Foundations over Knight of the Stampede. This isn't a sideboard card. I thought it would be. You can mainboard this and be pretty happy with it. Sometimes you do have to side it out, and that's kind of a problem, but... Okay, and our rare is Admiral's Order. Not a very good one. It's basically cancel. It does make it so on your turn, if your opponent has like Divine Verdict, you can counter it for 1 mana, but there's not a lot of other things that actually having 1 blue mana to counter their stuff, only having to pay 1 blue mana to counter their stuff on your turn is going to matter. It's not unplayable, but I would take Knight of the Stampede over it and Shake the Foundation, so it's definitely not great. So that's it. This was a pretty weak pack. I think in the end I would take Stormfleet Sprinter, then Shake the Foundations, then Knight of the Stampede. Let me know in the comments what you would first pick.